Hi, this is Ram from Crossmind Studio and welcome back to another chapter of Mantaflow series. And today we are going to talk about the rain simulation, for which I uploaded a video a few months ago, I guess. So I haven't had the time to make a tutorial on it, so I think this is about the right time because we are about to wrap up the Mantaflow Introduction series within this month. So there's going to be this video and another video in between about the drink pouring within the glass, and then we are going to create a explosion tutorial which is expected for the 26th of this month, for which I already have uploaded the trailer. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. So yeah, so for now that's the plan. This is going to wrap up the introduction. I think that is plenty of information for you to get started with the Mantaflow. So in case there are few examples that we would like to discuss in the future, we can always keep on adding within the same playlist. But for the introduction purpose, I think this is enough, and we are going to put a hold on it for now because we have plans of making and discussing few other interesting topics which would be beneficial for the beginners, and maybe grease pencil or the character illustration or something like that. So we are going to keep this tutorial a very short one and not really go into like exact step by step and try to recreate the same scene. And then I'll upload the final file in the description, which you can get from Gumroad if you want. And I'll also open the final file over here and give you an overview of what's going on. I'll try to not skip on any part so that you can understand what's going on. All right, so let's create this cube around 6 meters by 6 meters and 0.5 in the height, or maybe 1 in the height. It's right in the center. Go to the edit mode and let's create some sort of walls. Like we want this to look like a container collision, something like that. All right, and let's create another cube and make it around 6 by 6 by 6. Actually the height needs to be around 0.05. A very thin sheet. We don't want much particles, we just want a very thin layer of the liquid, just so that, just like how the water puddles, basically the thin amount of layer on the ground. So let's scale this container up. Let's apply the scale for each of the object. And so let's rain tutorial file. Yeah, I'm just going to save this one. Yeah, so we have the container, we have the fluid emitter, and now what we need to do is let's go to the object, quick effect, quick liquid. So we have the domain. Let's scale this down so that we have just enough area for our scene to contain enough particles. I mean, we don't want any unnecessary resolution for the domain. So let's go to the frame 1 and see if we can see any particles. So this sheet over here is much thinner than the voxel size of the domain resolution. So we either have to increase the scale of this one or decrease the scale of this voxel by increasing the resolution. So let's say by 64, if I do that, I think it's still pretty big, and this thin particles can't, I mean, it can't fit into this. So we have to, I think, increase it to 128. And yeah, as soon as I do that, you can see the particles over here. So let's play our simulation, and it's falling on the ground. I don't want that. I want this liquid to contain within this container. So let's apply a effector on this one and make this one collision, and this should do the job. So it's a pretty basic setup, as you can see. So yeah, we have the liquid and it's being blocked by the collision geometry. So that's a good start. Now what we need to do is we need to create some sort of forces. So basically the idea behind this rain simulation is just try to imagine when this liquid interacts with any collision geometry or any forces, so it will create the velocity of that thing is going to affect the fluid. So that's what we need. You can either drop 1,000 pebbles in between over here, or you can create a simple force fields, just to mimic that behavior. So instead of actually creating collision geometries, what we can do is we can create particles and use those particles as like force fields, and that will basically, the velocity will create the ripples and crown splashes. I'll just show you the visual example. So for this plane, let's call this one particle plane, and on this one we can create one particle. I mean, these particles are falling down. We don't want all that. Okay, we just want these particles to emit, I mean, to stay for just about 3 seconds. And these are rising up. I think there is some sort of velocity. Yeah, we don't want that. Now these are falling down because there is some sort of, I guess there is gravity. Yeah. So the purpose of these particles is just to create velocity, I mean the force field, just for those 3 frames. Every particle is alive for 3 frames. So I'll just reduce the particles for now so that you can see what's going on. So now if I go to the force field and let's leave it to 0, because by 0 it means every particle will have the force field. If you make it 10, then only 10 particles out of 50 particles will have the force field. So we want every particle to have the force field effect, and the effector over here we want force. So by default the force field is going to affect the entire area, because it doesn't have any limit assigned to it. So let's say if you want to create a ripple which is only this large, this let's measure this one around 0.4 meters. All right, I guess it's 0.4 meters. Yeah. So let's make the fall off max distance for 0.4 meters, and let's make the strength around 10 and see what's going on. So I'll enable the fluid again, and okay, I think I'll have to reset the simulation. There was some sort of cached frame. So now you can see there is some sort of color, the color difference going on, that represents that the velocity of these particles around this particle which is creating the force field is different. Once I play this, you will be able to see the crown splashes going on. And the behavior is going to change depending on where you place your particles. If it's in the center, it's going to push the fluid from the center. If you make this particle plane on the top, then I don't think it will create a crown splash, but it will still create the ripples, but the visual will be different. I mean, it won't splash up. So you'll have to just try it out and see. Okay, this looks good. I think so you get the idea, I guess. And right now we only have the 50 particles, so that's why the rain, it looks very slow. And I think these splashes are very big. We can decrease the area from 0.4 to 0.3, and maybe increase the force to 12 or something like that. And I also feel okay, so the trailer which you had seen, in that the settings were a bit different. I hadn't used the higher time steps. So this I discovered later, that you can improve the quality by increasing the time steps. So I'll keep the both files, the trailer file and this file, in the description. You can just check it out, study it if you want. Yeah, this looks good. Honestly, I think this is better than the previous file which I had created for the trailer purpose. I'm not sure if there has been improvements in the Mantaflow, or is it because of the overall setup, the time steps and all. This looks good. So now what I'll do is increase the resolution and do the final bake. Let's make this one 256 and bake this one on 256 and come back after a short break. Okay, before I start baking this one, instead of replay, I'll make this one modular so that it's much more responsive. And let's bake only 40 frames for now. So Yeah, I'll just bake this one and come back with the results. And also one very important thing to keep in mind, in case you are trying to bake your simulation without baking the particles, might would crash. It's necessary, I feel, to bake the particles before trying to bake the simulation, because it might get unstable and crash. So let's bake this one. Yeah, let's hit the bake. All right, so I baked the simulation, and this was on 256. Let me just go to the settings over here. So yeah, we baked it on the 256, and time steps maximum 4 and minimum 1, just for the sake of tutorial purpose, because it was taking way too long. And I just want to tweak a few things about this. I think the splashes are way bigger than I would want this to be, and I think we can decrease the radius of the max distance. So I'll make this one around 0.2, and the strength of the force would be 8. All right, so I'm just going to do a few tests. Maybe 8 is going to work, maybe not, and then come back to you with the final results. And yeah, so I just don't want to drag this tutorial for too long. I really like the crown splashes going on over here, so I'll just save a version instead of yeah, overwriting it. I save the version. Let me just do some quick bake again and come back to you with the final results. So here's the preview, and after baking the entire simulation, I still found these splashes are much larger than I would want. I had to decrease the strength to 7, but I still think I can go a bit further and tweak it a little more. So this is what it looks like. I think it's pretty decent. Depending on your taste, you can always do as many experiments as you want, and there is no right or wrong. Whatever works for you is fine. So these are the splashes look good, the crown splashes, these looks good, but right now it looks like these are like very heavy droplets, or maybe once we apply material it would look much lighter than this. Let me just isolate this thing so we can see a better preview. So it took me around 1 hour to simulate around 90 frames. One more thing I just wanted to make sure to put it here, that I'm not quite sure why this current scene is crashing. And I remember when I originally created the main trailer scene, there was no issue. And right now what's happening is when I try to bake this one on modular or on all set cache type, then my simulation is somewhat crashing. I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but if I decrease the resolution it works fine. But on the replay it was working fine, so I had to bake it on replay. If you guys come across the same issue, let me know what the solution is. It's definitely a bug. Just test it out. And I'm just going to make one more preview, and in this one I think I can just reduce the size or the max distance to around 0.15, and I just want these the radius to be a slightly smaller than what it is right now. I'll just go back to the first frame, bake the entire simulation again, and come back to you with the results. So here's the final preview, and this is what it looks like. The splashes are much smaller. You can see the radius is decreased, and now from this point onwards, all you need to do is you just need to decide how many particles you want, how dense you want this rain scene to look like, whether you want very few droplets or thousands of droplets. So it's totally depending on your taste and the requirement. I'll leave it to as it is and go back to the rendering part and just share the scene which I have for the rendering with you guys. Alright, so I'm back to the main scene which I had uploaded a few months ago, the render file. And keep in mind, this file was created using 2.82, I guess, 2.82 or 2.83. So I just didn't want to reconstruct this file because there might have been a lot of changes during these new releases. And I'm sure if I try to recreate this using I mean, if I unbake this and rebake this in the 2.91, the results will be different because overall principle is the same. What we just did with the particle droplets and the force fields and all that. So it's the exact same method. It's just that there have been changes in the Mantaflow and the velocity and the force fields. So if you see over here, particle plane, if I go to this the particles, you can see I have 500 particles and the lifetime is around 5 frames. In this it's 5 frames, but we used 3 frames for just now. I'll leave this file on the gumroad as well if you guys want to study it. So just keep in mind, if it doesn't work exactly as it is, so go back to 2.82 or 2.83 and this file will exactly the same. For the main exercise what we just created, the newer file, you can use that if you want to study it further. This one I'm using it just for the render, explaining the render setup. So the render setup is quite simple. The only thing I have done over here is, let me just bring the shader editor. If I enable the render, I have the most basic PBR setup. I believe these are from the texture heaven. So on the ground, I have simple displacement material with the ground, and these you can bring any texture PBR setup from the texture heaven. In the displacement, I have a very slight amount of displacement, just enough to break the flat surface. If you don't know how the displacement works, it's simple. You just select the plane, you apply one subdivision surface on it and enable the adaptive subdivision. And in the material, you need to enable the settings. From bump only, you need to enable either the displacement only or disable displacement, and also you need to enable the experimental feature set in the render properties. That's about it. So that's the whole setup for the ground. And for the main domain, I have a very basic material, which is quite standard transparent surface material. So you feel free to experiment with this if you want to make this one look like maybe a chocolatey surface or a wax, or like any kind of look you want, you can do that. And for the environment, I have again, this is a very basic setup, nothing fancy, and it's just the standard HDR which you get from the Blender folder. So the night.exr multiplied with the sunset.exr, that's about it. Then in the camera, I believe I've used some sort of depth of field for this setup. Yeah, something like this. The last thing for the animation purpose, what I did was, let me just disable the main domain so that we can focus on other things. Yeah, so just like how we made this particle plane over here, sorry, let me just bring the timeline. So I made a duplicate of this particle plane and moved it up. Instead of having no gravity for the particles, I enabled the gravity. You can see over here we have the gravity enabled, and I also increased the lifetime so that particle stay for quite some time and these fall down. And for the droplet, I have this very stupid shape over here which I created. It's a very lazy work. So you can just bring a simple cube and modify it with a soft selection and make one droplet. So for those who have never dealt with the particles, I just want to give you, because I believe this is the most basic setup I've created over here, and just bring any plane and assign particle settings over here. The particle is gonna fall down. You can decrease the lifetime. Also, you can bring a cube over here, go to the edit mode, and just start shaping it up like a droplet. All right, that's it, and give it some smooth shape. That's it. That's the whole thing. And once you're done with this one, you can select the particle, the main plane, and go to the render and change the halo to object and select the newer object which we have created. There you go. All right. And on this drop I have a very basic material, which is glass BSDF. Let me just maximize the window. Again, very basic setup over here. And if you don't want this to be I believe you understand all these. I don't think I need to explain all these basic stuff. If you're coming from the introduction series, all these are the very basic stuff. So let's just go back and enable the main domain and go back to our camera. And in the cycles, I used 256 samples. So camera, I think we can decrease the depth of field. This is too much. Yeah, there you go. So that's it, guys. This is the whole setup, and just keep in mind this render file I had created using 2.82 or 2.83, I guess. So there have been few changes, and maybe there must have been plenty of changes during this time. I think it's been about 6 or 7 months. So that is the reason I wanted to recreate this scene using 2.91. So as you can see, the overall principle is the same, the method is the same. So I'm going to leave the both files on the gumroad if you guys want to study it. So I'll leave the newer file with the 2.91 version for the animation purpose, and this one for the rendering setup purpose. Alright, so just in case if you guys come across any issue, keep in mind the older file was using 2.82. Alright, so you might have to open that file using the older version in case the result don't look exactly the same. However, I will be sharing the baked cached file, so I don't think you will have to rebake the rendering file again. You can just load the cache in the setup. Alright, so this is it for now, and I will be uploading another chapter, the explosion chapter, which have been for which I have shared the trailer on the channel. If you haven't seen the trailer, you can check it out. It's on the channel already. Somewhere in between, I will also be uploading one more video which was about pouring drink in the glass and using the particles to generate white the foam on top of your liquid simulation. So it's a very basic thing. Again, it's going to be a short tutorial. So that's about it for now, and I want to wrap up the Mantaflow introduction within this month so that we can focus on other things. I just want to put a hold on the entire simulation part for now, just for now. I think there are few other interesting topics we can touch upon, like the character animation, character illustration, and maybe the grease pencil. I just want to make sure that I don't get carried away in one subject, and instead we want to take care of all the broader subjects which are necessary for the beginners to begin with. Alright, so I'll see you guys in the next video, and also I think this is the first video of the year, so I just want to wish everyone a very happy new year, and I hope you guys are having a good time. And I do have a milestone for this year. I will be sharing that with you guys, like what is the plan for this channel, what are the videos you can expect on this channel. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Do let me know if you come across any issues or challenges during this section. And if you are new to Mantaflow, you can go and check out the Mantaflow playlist first, understand the very basic before beginning with this one. And if you are struggling with the basics of the Blender, you can also check out our introduction to Blender, which will help you with the other aspects of the Blender. Alright, I'll see you guys again. Goodbye, take care, bye.